welcome to another Americans for Limited Government live stream. Grateful to be here today on the 23rd of December with Rick Manning, the president of Americans for Limited Government. Rick, we want to get right into it today. Bette Midler sent shockwaves around the country, not just in West Virginia, when this week she accused the people of West Virginia of being poor, illiterate, and strung out. And it is your belief that she is speaking not only of West Virginians when she says those things, but she's really speaking about flyover country, just the rest of America, anything that's not her sort of liberal elite bubble.
Right. All that part of America that when you look at a map of who voted for Donald Trump and who voted for Joe Biden, all that part of the map that's red, that's like 98% of the map. That's what the people in the blue, who in the deep blue, actually see the rest of us as being nothing but illiterate rubes who are uneducated and need to be taught a lesson. Because after all, we elected Donald Trump, and isn't that a terrible thing? And he threatened everything they held near and dear to their hearts. And one of the ironies is that that actually from a literacy perspective, West Virginia is far more illiterate than LA, or California or New York. They have a higher literacy rate in West Virginia. Strange, huh? It's so the kind of the stereotype that the left tries to perpetuate of people who don't agree with them as being somehow lesser than, uneducated, kind of smelling funny and looking funny. You know what? Fact is that those are the people who are right now saying, let's go, Brandon, because they're tired of being looked down upon. Donald Trump got elected because they were tired of being looked down upon. And Bette Midler, from Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy of Company 3 fame, is an exact example of why people have been just gotten sick to death of being looked down upon by people who, quite honestly, are less educated than they are.
So, Rick, I did put up the statistics. Rick is absolutely right. The facts bear out what he's saying. 21% of West Virginians are illiterate compared to 28% of Californians and 24% of New Yorkers. So Bette Midler might want to, read up a little bit before she makes those kinds of accusations. But I do want to make clear that she did apologize shortly after she tweeted out this offensive remark. She did apologize. So let me show you what that looks like. Here on the side of the screen, you should be able to see her original tweet. So she says, Joe Manchin, who represents a population smaller than Brooklyn, has done to the rest of America, and who wants to move forward, not backward like his state. This is horrible. He has sold us out. He wants us all to be like his state, poor, illiterate, and strung out. And then it was the same day, just really about half an hour later. So she must have gotten a blizzard of criticism. 30 minutes later, she says, I apologize to the good people of West Virginia for my outburst. She's seeing red. But then, Rick, she goes on to accuse Joe Manchin and his entire family of being a criminal enterprise. So what kind of an apology is that? That is insane, first of all. So now she expands the scope of her angry, mean remarks. Now his entire family is a criminal enterprise. Anyway.
Yeah, let's just break that down. First of all, she blamed the people of West Virginia for Joe Manchin's vote because Joe Manchin was following what a vast majority of people in West Virginia believe was the right response to Biden's bill, and that is to reject it. So West Virginians rejected the bill overwhelmingly. There are polls that showed that. What's more, the bill itself threatened the ability of the coal workers and people working in the natural gas industries for even being able to exist and have jobs if that bill had passed. And West Virginia is a energy extraction state. And so and quite honestly, people in West Virginia used to be hardcore Democrat until the Democrats decided that they wanted to eliminate people in West Virginia's jobs. And that's when they decided, well, gee whiz, it makes sense for us to be Republicans because the Democrats hate us. Well, Bette Midler hates them. But the response, the switch that she made is really interesting, because she's no longer blaming West Virginians per se. She's saying that, oh, Joe Manchin is corrupt. She's saying something, basically he's a part of a corrupt crime family, and that's the reason why he basically shot down the Biden bill. Well, Bette Midler doesn't know anything. Okay, let's just be clear. She doesn't really know anything. She's a person who happens to have been blessed with a voice, and was given the opportunity to be a star at some level, and so she doesn't know all that much. But what she knows is pretty limited in terms of on first-hand basis about anything about Joe Manchin. She probably couldn't have named Joe Manchin 4 years ago. So she doesn't know Joe Manchin. She doesn't know his family. I'm not going to say I don't know any of the allegation, but I do know this. This is simply an attempt to say, oh, Joe Manchin is a criminal, and hence that's why he opposed us. And that's just low. It's the lowest of the low kind of remark. And it's really sore loser kind of remark. And Bette Midler's lack of knowledge, her relative uneducation on the subject has been put on full display. The problem is that's how Hollywood as a whole looks at people who don't agree with them, who voted for Donald Trump, who oppose the Build Back Better plan. That's how they look at you, and yet they depend on you to buy their tickets.
Right.
They depend on you to subsidize their industry. Just stop.
I think that Midler's so-called apology, it really gets to the point of when liberals, they can't attack the substance of an issue, so then they attack you personally. And that's exactly what she was doing here. And the governor of West Virginia, who is a Republican, and Joe Manchin, of course, is a Democrat, the governor of West Virginia just the other day did a press statement, a little video, which we're going to watch here, in which he actually addressed the substance of the legislation and why the people of West Virginia reject it. And I think that that's exactly where the conversation needs to be. And you've been talking about that all along, Rick, is that we need to move off the politics and talk and even the dollar amount of these bills and look at the substance of how these massive spending bills the Democrats are putting forward that would fundamentally transform us from a capitalist country into a socialist, if not a communist country. So, and that's what the governor of West Virginia does. So let's go ahead and watch a little clip here of him defending his state and even Joe Manchin.
Absolutely, with her criticism of West Virginia, which is so uncalled for. I would very well say that Bette Midler may have never been to West Virginia before. She's a New York Hollywood elite, that's for sure. She absolutely believes in things that are trying to take the very existence away from this country. You think about the propaganda to promote socialism throughout our country. And absolutely to set back because Joe Manchin is stepping up and doing what's right. That's just all there is to it. But Joe Manchin is just really representing West Virginia, is he not? I mean, it's tough to be a senator in West Virginia today and not hear the voice of the West Virginia people. And the West Virginia people are speaking very loudly. We stand wholeheartedly by our freedoms in West Virginia, but we stand wholeheartedly by the foundations of what this country was founded upon. We don't want our very existence stripped away and become average. Americans are not average. That's all there is to it. We dug in. We had grit. We just didn't sit on the porch and wait for things to just be divvied out equally amongst all of us across this country. The people that got dirty, the people that absolutely had grit in their life and everything, the people that strive to get ahead, that's the foundation of who we are. That's the very thing that made America the greatest nation on the planet and will continue to do so.
All right.
But absolutely.
So thank you, Governor Jim Justice of West Virginia, because Rick, I loved what he had to say. He was addressing the substance of these bills. So go ahead, your reaction.
Well, I think it may be the one promise that Joe Biden might have kept, and that is apparently he unified the Republican governor of West Virginia and the Democrat senator from West Virginia. And in doing so, he created the unity that perhaps he was promising. I don't think he created it quite the way he meant to. But yeah, there is a unity that exists there. And I think it's something we have to start doing. We have to start being able to praise people who do the right thing. And it's in the case of, the filibuster, for instance, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are standing up and saying, no, you won't fundamentally transform the country by changing the rules of the Senate. We need to be praising them. I don't agree with Joe Manchin on a lot of stuff. I don't agree with Kyrsten Sinema on a lot of stuff. But the bottom line is, on some fundamental things, they've stood firm and said, we're going to play by the rules. We're not going to break them. And in Joe Manchin's case, he's saying, we're not going to fundamentally transform America, and has rejected the essence of the Biden administration policies. That is astonishingly, that's amazing. It astonishes me. I didn't think that would happen. I was wrong. And, anybody who's afraid to say, yay, Joe Manchin right now isn't thinking. And it's not just yay, Joe Manchin. It's based on the fact that I'm going to disagree with him. There's going to be times I'm going to say, we need to call Joe Manchin and urge him not to do stuff. We're going to be, this isn't about, gee, he's on our side or their side. It's because he's made clear he's on America's side. And when we're all on the America's side, then we can have a conversation. The problem is the people on the left are no longer on America's side. They reject people in the middle of the country. They think people in the middle of the country are all racist. They want to train our kids and tell us we're all racist. They think America is a racist country, and as a result, is no better or worse than any other country. In fact, is worse. And so when your basis is that America is evil, the Constitution needs to be usurped. We need to pack the Supreme Court in order to get our way. When that's we need to break the filibuster in order to get our way. When that's the basis of your underlying philosophy, and that's the left, then it's hard to have a conversation. But we can have a conversation all day long with Democrats who believe in the foundation of America and who believe that the people who go out and fight for our freedom around the world are the good guys, who believe that people who are working in our police departments, mistakes are made and bad things happen, but by and large, they're the good guys. And that the people who smash and grab and are breaking the laws and are trying to burn down buildings, that they're the bad guys. You know what? We can have a conversation with those people. And that's what the conversation we need to be able to have. And quite honestly, it's a conversation we were able to have 10 years ago. And that's been lost as the left has plummeted off a cliff of socialism.
Well, I'm just grateful that the governor of West Virginia did speak to the substance of the bill and not just the dollar amount. That these proposals the Democrats are putting forward are not just inflationary, they will destroy the fundamental nature of this country. And Rick, I also want to ask you another thing that a lot of people on the right are talking about in the last week is, should Joe Manchin come into the Republican Party? Should we make overtures to welcome him into our party? People say that it can happen in like a day. All he has to do is go into McConnell's office and say, hey, let me in. And then suddenly McConnell overnight will become the new Senate Majority Leader. Is that even possible that it could happen that quickly? And would we even want that? What are your thoughts?
Well, it could happen that quickly. And there are certain advantages to the Republicans to be in the majority. For one thing, they control the scheduling on the floor. And one of the things Chuck Schumer has done is he's been very aggressive in scheduling Biden nominees and Biden judges onto the floor, and unlike what McConnell did with Trump, by the way. And so you would have and so if you had control of the floor and the scheduling, you could slow down the Biden flood of far left crazy judicial nominees. So that just for one thing would be valuable. But in terms of timing, yeah, Joe Manchin could walk in tomorrow and say, I'm caucusing with the Republicans, and the majority leader gavel would change, would shift right there. And there'd be nothing the Democrats could do about it. I don't think he's going to do that. He's a Democrat. He's made it clear he's a Democrat. He's been a Democrat his whole life. He said he's a Democrat. He doesn't want to leave the Democratic Party. I think he views himself as fighting for the soul of the Democratic Party, and you can't do that if you're sitting in the Republican side. And so I would be surprised if he does that. I'd be surprised if he went independent, even though we have two independents in the Senate who both caucus with the Democrats, one of whom almost won the Democratic nomination for president, Bernie Sanders. So we have Bernie Sanders and Angus King from Maine, who both proclaim themselves to be independents, but actually caucus with the Democrats and vote for the Democrat, for Schumer to be the majority leader. And Manchin could take the step of becoming independent, but saying he's caucusing with Republicans, which would put the gavel in McConnell's hands. I don't believe he'll do that. I believe that may happen in 2023. I don't believe it'll happen between now and 2023, because quite honestly, right now, the legislative road in the Senate goes through the offices of Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, and they have far more power and ability to influence policy the way it is right now than they would if they were part of the Republican Party.
Rick, I just checked. The AP reports that Joe Manchin votes with his party 68% of the time. So clearly, there are votes where he doesn't, but the majority is he's still voting Democrat. I don't know that I want him in the Republican Party, because I think he would be worse than a Mitt Romney. Like Mitt Romney won't, he kills a lot of good Republican ideas. And I think Joe Manchin would be even worse. So I'm not sure that it would be a benefit to us.
No, I agree. I agree with you. It's Kat, the question wasn't whether that was a good idea, is whether he would. I agree with you that I think, first of all, if Joe Manchin becomes the middle, then he's left of center. Okay, in terms of his view of the world and the economy and everything else, he's left of center. If he becomes the center, then effectively the entire body politic moves to the left.
Right.
And that's a real challenge, because the body politic right now, we're a center right country, and if Joe Manchin is center left, and essentially the fulcrum, wherever that fulcrum is where the body politic is. And right now he is that fulcrum. He is that point, the tipping point. But the reality is the public is actually much further to the conservative side than he is. And if he becomes the middle, then the nation will move to the left politically, and that's a bad thing.
Right. All right. Well, Rick, is there anything else we want to talk about in terms of the Bette Midler comments? I mean, where do we go from here as Americans?
Well, there was a comment that Ruth Wigginton, I think, made, that she was concerned about praising Joe Manchin too much. I believe that we have to praise him specifically on what he's done, but not in terms of in a broad way. And that is he's shown extraordinary courage in standing up, and I think he deserves to get that praise for that extraordinary courage. But the fact of the matter is, Joe Manchin, everybody knows it. Every single fight, we're going to have to work really hard to try to convince him to stand up. And we were fortunate to win this one, but that doesn't mean we're going to win the next one. So the key to the praise of Joe Manchin is to praise him for standing up and being courageous in this instance and being wise in this instance, but not to give him sort of the blanket, the ticker tape parade down Main Street in Charleston, because the fact of the matter is, Governor Justice got it right. He talked about this bill and him standing up, but next time Joe Manchin could be trying to vote for something that's actually not any good, And we're going to have to sit there and lobby him hard and try to make it so he doesn't try to balance this vote with other votes that will make him popular amongst his Democratic caucus colleagues.
All right. Well, we want to thank you all for joining us, because we know that you are the very people that Governor Jim Justice of West Virginia was talking about, the people who work hard, who have sacrificed, and your forefathers have sacrificed and really built this nation. And you continue to work hard, and you raise your children to be hard workers and to be good citizens. And those are the people that Joe Manchin represents in West Virginia. And I'm grateful to be an American, especially, at this Christmas season, when we look around and we have so much abundance and so much to be grateful for. I am especially grateful for the good lawmakers Governor Justice and Joe Manchin and others on Capitol Hill who are really seeking to protect our individual liberties and freedoms. So I want to just thank you for being a part of our team. And Rick, I'll let you close it out.
Yeah, thank you for being part of our team. It is so important. And, if you go back onto Rumble, look at what I was saying at Christmas last year. Look at what we were talking about as we were heading into the Biden presidency in January. And what you'll see is kind of laying out a lot of the worst case scenarios that could exist. And, and the Christmas message was really geared to give people hope. A year ago. I'm happy to report right now that the Biden administration did exactly what we were concerned they would do. They went for it. They took steps well beyond what their mandate was, because they really didn't have one. And in doing so, the good news is they've turned the country against them, and they're losing their consensus in the Democratic Senate. And in doing so, they have created an environment where 2022 is going to be much more difficult for them to pass agenda than 2021 was. And while we're not out of the storm, the fact is, as we head into January of 2022, we're in far better circumstance than we were on January 21st, 2021. And so, there's hope. And there's a path forward, and we'll be discussing that in a future broadcast. But for now, just be grateful and count our blessings, and be grateful that our country is coming together around the concept of freedom, even if sometimes some of our government officials haven't quite got the clue yet.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate you joining us today, and we'll see you next time on another Americans for Limited Government live stream.